Welcome to Talkin Business. I'm Joe Catrambone, CEO of the Stewart Martin County Chamber of Commerce, and I am really honored today to have our Sheriff Will Snyder, as my guest today. Sheriff, I know how busy you are. I know you've got pending stuff. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come up and sit here with me for a while.
I'm glad to do it, Joe. I was looking forward to it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And you recently had a great celebration.
Yes, it was a surprise birthday party. My
Yeah.
rotten sons planted on me.
And it was great. I was there, and it was really great. And it was the first time I ever saw you at a loss for words. I mean, you've seen the pictures when you walked through that door. I saw you were trying to process. To me, it looked like you were going, "What the hell's going on here?"
Well, I was. My son John told me it was a political debate that he was in. And I was, mentally geared up for a political debate, and I walk in, there's 100 and something people singing "Happy Birthday."
That was great. That was really great. You got a great family.
Thank you,
You
Joe.
have a really great family. So, Sheriff, what I normally start out with because I know, and not, most people don't know, because we are such a transit area. So we have such a change in people. So I like to ask people, what brought you? Stewart, Martin County's a little blip on the map, and Stewart's just that tiny. What brought you here?
Well, Joe, I was a Miami Dade Police Sergeant at the time. It was 1985. My firstborn son was 5 years old, and we just decided that we wanted to raise him outside of Dade County, and we knew one person in Hope Sound, and we came up one day, visited with her, looked at houses, and before I knew it, we had a house in Hope Sound, and I've lived here ever since.
So did you commute? Because you were, as you said, you're a Miami Dade police officer, right?
Right.
And you lived in Hope Sound, so you commuted?
I did. It was 90 miles one way from my house to my substation at the time, and I-95 didn't go through. So some of your guests, your viewers, may not know that, but back in those days, I-95 didn't even come through Martin County. I used to have to get off at Palm Beach, in Palm Beach County, get on the Beeline Expressway and work my way home.
Yeah, I can remember those days. I remember coming south, quit at Vero Beach,
Yeah.
and then skirted around Martin County because of, I guess there was a lot of obviously politics involved, but there were wetlands involved, or where the road was going to be, and that's why the exits, or to get on I-95 or to get off in Martin County, are so far removed or out of the city because we skirted around all that areas, and I like that. I think it's great.
Well, Martin County politics has always been, the two sides: slow growth, pro-growth, anti-growth, pro-growth, and it was the same back then in the 70s and 80s. They had somehow kept the forces at bay that would have brought I-95 through a year sooner. And so, I would get off, I think it was North Lake Boulevard, work my way over to Pratt Whitney, and then go home from there.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah, it was a haul.
So I remember you ran for sheriff, what, in 89 or 90, was it? 90?
It would have been the election cycle, I think, if I have it right, would have been the winner would have won in the November '93 general election.
Was it 90? I knew it was early 90s
Yeah.
because I got here in 89.
Yeah.
And I remember I wasn't here too long before you ran.
Right. Then Sheriff James Holt announced his retirement.
Right.
I was a sergeant in Dade County, commuting 180 miles round trip, and I concocted a plan to run for sheriff. Did okay.
Yeah.
I didn't win, but Bob Crowder, who did win, very graciously took me on. It was the end of my long commute, and I stayed working in Martin County, except for a 6-year hiatus in the Florida house ever since.
I remember that, and I thought that was in my opinion, it was one of the best moves that the Sheriff Crowder ever made, was bringing you on. Because you had a lot of support here.
There may be some that would disagree with you
Well,
as far
hey,
as being
that's
a good
their
move,
problem.
but it worked out for me, my
Yeah.
family. I was able to raise my 3 children in Martin County, and I plan to never leave this county.
Well, I hope not. Thank you for that. You know, you have a reputation. I'm going to regress in the late 60s, early 70s, there was a sheriff by the name of Willis McCall. I think it was in Putnam County. I can't remember. At the time, I was on the road. I had a business and I was traveling. So I used to travel all over the state of Florida. And it intrigued me that this sheriff, Willis McCall, had billboards all over his county with his picture on it. And it said, if you're here with bad intent, it said, this is McCall country.
Oh.
And it would have a quote on it. If you're here with bad intentions, turn around and leave. And I don't know, I'm certain he didn't coin the expression, but it was commit the crime, he would do the time. Yeah. So he had a reputation, and I heard from my drivers and people around the state that you didn't mess around with Willis McCall or in his county. You got the same reputation. I mean, he was a typical old-time Southern sheriff that would carry a stick, and that type of thing.
And use it too.
But you've got the reputation. I know. I've heard it from people. I think the perfect example was the pillowcase robbers, wasn't
Right,
it? Case. So you've got the reputation that, don't come up to Martin County because they're going to get you. They're going to run you out. They're going to put you in jail. I think that's why we're such a safe community. Obviously, look what's around us, especially south of us.
Well, the battle lines, Joe, have been drawn in law enforcement now clearly, and there's a segment of our society that believes decriminalizing behavior that's against the law is the way to go, and that will lead us to a better world. And then the other side would be where I fall, and that is that fair but strict law enforcement with swift but fair judgment following that is the best antidote to crime. And way back in when Rudy Giuliani was mayor of the city of New York, they came out with that broken windows theory, that if the side of a building has no broken windows, they stay not broken. But the first time that abandoned building has one broken window, then someone comes by and sees it and breaks another one. So the concept is, if you take care of the smaller, quote-unquote, lesser crimes, they don't become a breeding ground for more serious crime. And that's what we follow in Martin County. We take things like car burglaries, which in some of our bigger counties, north and south, they won't even investigate. We go all in on a car burglary because we know today's car burglar who gets away with it comes back the next day and steals somebody's purse. So we're dedicated to taking care of the smallest crime possible, and we put a lot of energy into it, and we believe that prevents the more serious crimes like the residential burglaries, the strong arm robberies.
To me, there's more of a presence today than there was, and obviously, how many deputies have you got on the road?
I have right at about 270 sworn law enforcement and close to 200 corrections deputies.
But the 270, they're the ones out. Although do your correction deputies drive cars, marked cars?
No, the marked units you see would be one of the 270 some odd sworn law enforcement that we have.
Is that more than we've ever had before?
We have not added law enforcement personnel for quite some time. We're trying to hold a budgetary line, but we're also trying to increase our salaries for our deputies that are there. So what we've done, Joe, is we're trying to work smarter. We're trying to be more thoughtful about what we dispatch our deputies to. We're using civilian service aides now to take non-emergency calls like traffic crashes without injuries. And that's helping us. We're working smarter, but we have not added substantial, hardly at all to our law enforcement footprint.
That's amazing. I'm not on the road anymore, obviously. I leave my house in Palm City, I drive to the chamber in Stewart, and I come home, and, occasionally I'm out in the evening. But there isn't a time that I'm on the road that I don't see one of your deputies.
Well, we
And
design
I think that's great. I mean, the presence is there.
we design our zone specifically for ample visual coverage, not only as first responders if there's an emergency, but also as a warning to criminals that were out there. And then we preach a lot. Be visible. If you have to write a report, don't go to the side of a shopping area, maybe where there's shade. Stay out off of Martin Downs Boulevard if it was your neighborhood. Stay off US 1 if you live in Hope Sound. Go up to Jensen Beach Boulevard and write your reports. And that presence, and especially where we really, really focus our exits. So we're up at 714 off I-95, Bridge Road off I-95, and obviously our major exit, Canaan Highway. You're not going through there without us being somewhere close by.
And no question it's a deterrent. And I think that's, better than I do, but I know most of those, like those burglaries and things that were being committed by people coming from the south.
Oh yeah, the majority of our more serious crime, car burglaries, residential burglaries, boat thefts, things of that nature, 98%, 99% are committed by offenders coming out of Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. And Rick Bradshaw is a personal friend. I love him. It's nothing to do with him, but they leave his county because he knows who they are, coming up here ostensibly because they don't think we know who they are, and it makes it really, really hard. And that's why we have that traveling criminal bill that the governor just signed that enhances penalties. If we catch you here and we can show that you left Broward County to come commit a burglary in Martin, you don't get to post bond at first. You have to go to first appearance, and it's another charge.
Well, it's working, obviously, and I congratulate you for that. It was interesting. Did you enjoy being in the legislature? I
loved my 6 years in the Florida legislature. It was a wonderful time. I ended up as the chairman for 4 years of criminal justice, so I was able to put my fingerprints on every criminal and civil bill that came out and passed during my time there, and I think I made a difference. It wasn't me personally. It's obviously the constituents who sent me there, my fellow legislators, the governor who signed it, the Senate who sponsored it. But together, I think I had an influence in passing some meaningful legislation that made all Floridians safer.
I totally agree with you. So do you think that helped you to rise to the success you have as a sheriff? Did that stint help you, do you think? And I mean, I know your background was criminal law enforcement, so that was in your genes, in your DNA.
Right.
But did that enhance maybe the way you thought about things or the way you
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
We actually conduct our staff meetings very much like a committee meeting in Tallahassee, rather than an autocratic top-down. It's my idea. I think it's a good idea. You all helped me institute it. We have a collective input, and so when I sit at staff, we function as a committee. Of course, I'm responsible for the final decision, but because of that kind of group consensus building, I think we make better administrative decisions. I'll give you an example. Our pursuit policy is being mirrored all over the state, and we didn't copy and paste another agency's pursuit policy. We actually created one ground up, and it's our method, it's our methodology, how we stop cars, how we avoid chases, and we're seeing that all over the state.
Congratulations,
Thank
that's
you.
great. And I know that's a hot potato. Even now, pursuit is a... So is there anything, I know you look forward, obviously that's what we all should do. Do you see anything that's going to be the next big problem? I mean, opioids right now, I mean, a lot of that a lot of the opioid stuff, is there crime involved there, or is it just these poor people overdosing? Is there, I mean, obviously the pushers
Yeah.
are an issue.
We actually asked two distinct questions, but I can conflate those questions and answer it this way. The next problem for law enforcement is here now, and that is the mental health crisis in America, what I think is just an example of a symptom of a larger problem in America, and that is the systemic disruption of family life, the constant chronic use of all that goes into the frailties that we see in our schools, in our families, in institutions, and you mix all that up, you have this noxious brew of pressure. And we have, on some some single shifts, as many as 4 Baker Acts, which is the authority we have to take someone to custody because they're a threat to themselves or others. And then to the segue back to your other question, this mentally ill population that we have, and it's big, self-medicates. And we're seeing overdoses, attempt suicides, on a scale I've never seen. I would have told you 5 years, 10 years ago, it would have been unimaginable. Today, that's what we do, is intervene in mental health crises.
So, and the Baker Act that you speak, now that's a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just get them off the street for a day or
72 hours at most, and then they have to be released.
So is there a follow-up? It should be from the mental health area, but as a sheriff, is there any kind of a follow-up you do? I mean, you've had this situation, you know this person's going to be back out in the street in 24 or 48 hours, probably in the same situation.
Yeah.
How do you
Great
address
question.
that?
We started with help from the county commission that fully funded my budget, with some help from the state. We got a grant. We now have a functioning mental health response unit. So if we do a Baker Act and the mental health unit tries to get there, but we don't have enough to go to every single call, they get a follow-up. So we assign, we have 2 mental health professionals, non-law enforcement, in the sheriff's office, contracted from New Horizons, and we follow up on every single one of these calls. And very importantly, which has never been done before, we now have a case manager in the jail. So a lot of mentally ill people end up in my jail. Probably 50% of my jail population's on psychotropic medication, treating some kind of mental illness. We don't let them out until they have a follow-up caseworker. We know that they're back their medication, because they come to jail for 6 months, they decompensate, they get out, they don't have their medication. So when we send them out, there's a caseworker, they have their medications, and we do follow-up.
So when when one of your officers pick up one of these mentally disturbed persons, especially if they're on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and you're locking them up for 48 hours or whatever it is, or there's withdrawal. How do you have to respond to that? Do you have to have someone on staff that medicates them so they don't try to kill themselves or whatever they do when they're coming down?
Well, let me answer the question with a little clarification. When we take somebody as a Baker Act, they go to an approved psychiatric receiving facility.
Oh, so they don't
they don't go to my jail.
Okay.
What we get in the jail are people that have committed a crime. They have to go to, they're charged with a crime, and then when they get out, oftentimes we have a Baker Act form, and then we move them to a crisis intervention, a mental health crisis intervention.
So then they deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that would be.
Yeah, we don't. We're not a mental health. I say this, quote unquote, we're not a mental health receiving facility, but I probably right now I have a jail population of 450. Probably 200 of them are on psychotropic medications. They have mental illness and they committed a crime. So we have mental health court. We're doing the best we can. Society is cracked, and there are more victims of it than we have resources to help.
Is there a solution? And what's the solution?
I get that question all the time. I think the solution is, and it's as archaic as it sounds, as old-fashioned, I think the solution is a return to traditional American values with strong families, churches, synagogues, mosques, faith, family, community, trying to get our children to understand right from wrong, I mean, there's some big systemic issues in America that have caused this cultural crisis. And, yes, it just sounds almost like a political left versus right and freedom versus government. But the true answer is, until we have some kind of revival of traditional values, this deterioration, this fraying of society will continue apace.
And I don't disagree with you. That certainly is, I think, probably the root of most evil is the fact that there is no family structure. And it's a poor mom, single mom trying to raise 3 kids, and it's not just a single mom. There's single guys out there too with this having the same problem, not nearly as much as single, but it's the family structure. I totally agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind what kept me straight is my father. Because my father was a very gentle man, but I didn't want to disappoint him, or my mother was the one to hit you with a frying pan, and so my father wasn't that way, but that there's no question, and I maybe I'm looking through rose-colored glasses, but I think I see some of that coming back.
A little resurgence.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I think, like I said, maybe I'm looking through rose-colored glasses and being hopeful, but I see some of that coming back with the soccer games and the little league games and those types of things. There's more parent and my neighborhood, where I live, I see the parents being involved with the kids, taking them to games, playing in the yard with them, doing the things that families should do, and
I'm hopeful. I'm not.
Yeah, we have.
I'm not despondent, but I think the answer we know the problem. I think the answer lies within us.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Absolutely right. Is there anything we missed that you want to talk about?
I'm going to close with this thought. As optimistic as I am, I would caution. I'm going to use this as a free commercial to tell people out there: this is not a babysitter. This is not your child's friend. If they're going to bed at night, to going into their room alone with this, you have no earthly idea what they're looking at. These children can hide things in their apps. They form relationships that they think are meaningful on this, that are nothing but danger. So if I've said anything today that helps anybody, this is the one thing I would like to hammer home. This is not your friend, and this is not your babysitter.
Thank you for that message, Sheriff. And neither is their computer.
Well, this is a computer. For
That
these
is,
kids.
but I mean the PC that you had there
Yes.
sitting in their room or whatever. So, yeah, I totally agree with you, Sheriff. My pleasure.
Joseph,
I'm so
my pleasure.
proud
Absolutely.
to be your friend
You are.
and to have you as our sheriff.
Thank you.
And I hope you stay as long as you want to. I know you will.
As long as the people will have me, I'm here.
There's nobody going to mess with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.